The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was very quiet. Alien leaders from many worlds sat in a big circle. Their faces showed worry and fear. The leader of the council, Zareth, looked around the room. He spoke softly, but everyone listened carefully. Zareth was old and wise, but today even he was nervous. He held a tablet in his hand. On the screen was a report about a new species that had joined the galaxy not long ago. The species was called human. They came from a small blue planet named Earth. The report said Earth was a strange place, but the most shocking thing was the air. Earth's air was full of a gas called oxygen. To the aliens in the council, oxygen was very dangerous. On their worlds, oxygen was not common. If oxygen was found, it usually meant fire, explosions, and sometimes death. Some planets had stories about places destroyed by just a little oxygen. For them, oxygen was a sign of chaos, not life. Zareth. Read aloud from the report. The council members looked at each other. Many were afraid. Some whispered that humans must be violent if they lived with so much danger every day. Others wondered how humans could stay calm, knowing that one small spark could start a disaster. An alien with green skin named Veeler shook his head. He said that the humans might not even be alive. Maybe they are machines or strange robots. Veeler suggested. Maybe they do not need to breathe like we do. Another alien, Lyra, spoke up. She was from a water world, and she could not imagine breathing a gas like oxygen. If we bring these humans here, will they bring danger with them? Will they bring oxygen? Lyra asked. Zareth sighed. He wanted to be brave, but he understood their fear. He remembered stories from his childhood about the old days when oxygen was a nightmare. Zareth stood and spoke with a strong voice. We must not judge too quickly, he said. We do not know these humans yet. We need to learn. We need to listen, the council argued for a long time. Some wanted to ban Earth from the galaxy. Some wanted to send soldiers to protect their worlds. Others were curious. Maybe humans knew something special about oxygen. Maybe they could help. Finally, after hours of talking, Zareth made a decision. He would invite a human to speak to the council. The council would learn the truth from a real person, not just from reports. Zareth pressed a button and called for the council's messenger. The messenger was a small, careful robot. Zareth told it to send an invitation to Earth. Ask them to send a representative. Someone who can explain how they live with oxygen? Zareth said. As the messenger rolled away, the council members whispered again. Some felt better, but some felt more worried. Veeler wondered if the human would be honest. Lyra worried about what the human would bring with them. Zareth just hoped he had made the right choice. Days passed and news spread across the galaxy. On every planet, people talked about the humans and their strange world. Some aliens were angry. They remembered old stories of oxygen fires and did not want to risk it. Others were excited. They wanted to see what a human looked like and how they acted. On Earth, a message arrived from the Galactic Council. The leaders of Earth read it and were surprised. They had not expected to be called to the council so soon. After some talks, they chose a young man named Daniel Price to go. Daniel was known for being calm and friendly. He had studied other species and knew a lot about space. Daniel was not going alone. A scientist named Maria Bennett would travel. With him, Maria was smart and curious. She had spent years studying how humans lived with oxygen. She believed that humans could help the galaxy understand it better. Before they left, Daniel and Maria talked with Earth's leaders. They practiced answers to possible questions. They packed examples of things from Earth, like pictures, videos, and samples. Maria made sure to bring information about science and history. Daniel promised to be honest and friendly. The day came for them to leave. Daniel and Maria walked into a small spaceship. The ship was made by both humans and aliens, so it was safe for everyone. As they left Earth, Daniel looked back at the blue and green planet. He felt proud and a little nervous. The journey to the council was long, but the ship was fast. Daniel and Maria talked about what they would say. They knew the council was afraid, but they hoped to show that humans were not dangerous. Maria said, "If we are honest, maybe they will see the truth." Finally, the ship arrived at the council's planet. The Great Hall was bigger than any building Daniel had ever seen. Guards checked everything carefully before letting them enter. The air inside was clean and filtered. Daniel saw that many aliens wore suits that kept out oxygen. The council was waiting. Zareth sat at the center, looking serious. Velar and Lyra sat close by, watching every move. Daniel felt many eyes on him. Maria stood tall beside him, holding her notes. Zareth welcomed them politely. His voice was calm, but Daniel could tell he was worried. Zareth asked Daniel to speak. Daniel smiled and introduced himself and Maria. He thanked the council for inviting them. Zareth did not waste time. He asked the question everyone wanted to know. How do humans live with so much oxygen? How do you stay safe? Daniel took a deep breath. He knew this was the most important question of his life. He looked at Maria, then back at Zareth. The whole hall was silent, waiting for the answer. Maria stepped forward with her notes. She spoke slowly so everyone could understand. She began to explain that humans needed oxygen to live, and that it was not just a danger, but a gift. The council listened, still full of fear, but now also full of curiosity. Daniel hoped that by the end of their visit, the council would see humans in a new way. He knew this was only the beginning of their story with the galaxy. Daniel and Maria stood in the Great Hall, facing the council. All the eyes in the room were on them. The seats around the circle were filled with aliens from many different worlds. Some were tall and thin, some had colorful skin, and others had eyes that glowed softly in the dim light. Every council member wore a suit that kept out any oxygen. To Daniel and Maria, the suits looked like armor. Zareth, the leader, waited for Maria to finish her first answer. The hall was very quiet. Maria explained again that oxygen was a part of every breath for humans. She said that on Earth, the air was almost 1/5 oxygen. She told the council that every living thing on Earth needed it, even plants and animals. This surprised some of the aliens, who only knew plants that grew in water or with different gases. Velar, the green-skinned alien, did not look convinced. He asked Maria if it was true that humans could even see fire on their planet. He had heard stories that fire could appear just from a spark. Maria nodded and said it was true, but she smiled and explained that humans had learned to control fire long ago. Daniel listened carefully to Maria's words, then looked around the room. He saw fear in many eyes, but he also saw interest. Some council members leaned forward, wanting to know more. Daniel knew that it was important to speak honestly, but also to show that humans were not careless. Another council member, a blue alien named Sarin, asked if humans were ever afraid of fire. Daniel nodded. "Of course, we respect fire," he said. "We teach children to be careful. We have rules and people called firefighters who protect us." Maria added that humans used fire for many good things, like cooking food and keeping warm. The council members started to whisper to each other. Many had never thought of fire as something useful. On their worlds, fire was always a sign of disaster. Zareth asked Daniel to explain more about how humans lived with fire. Daniel thought for a moment, then said, "We do not just live with fire. Sometimes we use it to celebrate. Sometimes we even burn oxygen just for fun." The council was shocked. The words seemed almost impossible to them. Lyra, the water world alien, looked confused. "Why would you burn oxygen for fun?" She asked. "Isn't that dangerous?" Daniel smiled kindly. He explained about holidays on Earth. He told the story of how people gathered with family and friends around a campfire at night. He talked about the crackling of the wood, the warm glow of the flames, and the way people sang songs or roasted food over the fire. Maria described how, on some days, people watched fireworks explode in the sky, making bright colors and loud sounds. These fireworks were made by burning special chemicals in the air, using oxygen. The aliens listened carefully. Some shook their heads in wonder, while others looked even more worried. Zareth asked if humans ever lost control of fire. Maria answered that yes, sometimes fires started by accident. That was why people needed to be careful and have firefighters to help if something went wrong. Wheeler asked what would happen if a fire started in the council's Great Hall. Daniel quickly said, "Fire is very hard to start without oxygen. Your air does not have enough. On Earth, it is different, so we are careful all the time." He tried to explain that for humans, fire was not just a danger. It was also a tool, a friend, and even a part of their culture. Maria saw that many aliens still did not understand. She took a small device from her bag and showed the council a video. The video was from a campsite on Earth. The screen showed people sitting around a campfire, laughing and talking. Children toasted marshmallows and someone played a guitar. The faces in the video were happy and relaxed. The flames danced in the dark, making everyone look warm and safe. The council watched the video in silence. The images were strange, but peaceful. There was no panic, no chaos. Zareth watched closely, trying to understand. Sarin whispered to another council member, wondering how humans could be so calm with fire so close. Daniel explained the rules humans followed when making a fire. He talked about fire pits, buckets of water nearby, and the way people checked the wind. He said that only adults were allowed to light the fire, and they always put it out before leaving. Maria said that children learned these rules when they were very young. For a few minutes, the council did not say anything. The video ended, and Maria put her device away. Zareth thanked Daniel and Maria for sharing their story. He said that he was starting to see humans in a new way. Wheeler still looked worried, but he was not as afraid as before. Daniel felt relief. He could see that the council was starting to trust them a little more. He wanted to show the aliens that humans were not just lucky to survive on Earth. They were strong, creative, and careful. Lyra asked if humans ever tried to live on worlds without oxygen. Maria replied that some humans worked in space or on planets where there was no oxygen. They wore special suits just like the council members did. Daniel said that humans like to explore and learn new things, even if it was hard. Sarin asked if humans ever tried to live underwater. Daniel laughed and said that some people did, for a short time, in places called submarines. Maria added that humans loved to explore the deep ocean, even though it was dark and cold. The council seemed curious now. Zareth leaned forward and said that he wanted to learn more about Earth and the way humans lived. He invited Daniel and Maria to visit other parts of the council city, to meet scientists and leaders from other planets. Daniel agreed happily. He wanted to show that humans were open and friendly. Maria smiled and said she would be glad to answer more questions. As the meeting ended, Zareth thanked them again. He promised that the council would think carefully about what they had learned. He hoped that one day humans and other species could become friends. Daniel and Maria left the hall feeling tired but hopeful. They walked through the city looking at the alien buildings and strange plants. Everywhere they went, aliens watched them. Some waved, some just stared. Daniel tried to wave back and smile. That night, Daniel and Maria talked in their small room. They wondered what the council would decide. Daniel said that he hoped the aliens would see that humans were not just survivors, but also dreamers and builders. Maria agreed. She said that maybe, by the end of their visit, they would have new friends among the stars. They did not know what tomorrow would bring, but they were ready to keep telling the truth about Earth, fire, and the spirit of humanity. The next day, Daniel and Maria woke up early. The city outside was quiet and strange, full of buildings shaped like shells and crystals. Alien ships moved across the sky, leaving trails of blue light. Maria took out her notebook and wrote down everything she saw. Daniel looked out the window, thinking about what they would say today. Soon, a gentle sound came from the door. It opened slowly, and a tall alien with silver skin greeted them. He introduced himself as Rallen, one of the council's scientists. Rallen invited Daniel and Maria to visit the science center, where many experiments and studies happened. Daniel and Maria quickly got ready and followed him down the smooth, shining hallways. At the science center, there were more aliens than Daniel had ever seen in one place. They wore different clothes and spoke in many languages, but all of them looked Curious, Rowland led Daniel and Maria into a large room where a group of scientists waited. Some of them looked nervous, but most were excited. Rowland explained that the scientists had many questions about Earth and how humans lived with oxygen and fire. Maria nodded and said she would do her best to answer. Daniel smiled, wanting to help. A young alien scientist named Fen asked the first question. Fen wanted to know why humans were not afraid of oxygen if it could burn so easily. Maria answered carefully. She said, "On Earth, oxygen is part of our lives. It is not just a danger. We need it to breathe and to live. We learn from a young age how to be careful. We respect fire, but we also use it to help us." Another scientist, Myra, asked about human houses. She wondered how people could live in homes made of wood or other things that could burn. Daniel explained that humans use special paints and materials to keep their houses safe. He talked about smoke detectors and how they warned people if a fire started. He said that most people had a plan to escape quickly if there was ever a fire. The scientists were surprised to hear about all the safety rules. Rowland asked if humans ever used fire for things other than cooking or staying warm. Daniel laughed and said, "Yes, sometimes we just watch fire because it is beautiful. We make bonfires and watch the flames dance. We also have big celebrations where we use fireworks. It is part of our culture." Maria took out her device and showed another video. This time it was a festival on Earth. People danced in the streets as fireworks exploded above them. The sky was full of colors and everyone cheered. The aliens watched with wide eyes. To them, it was like magic. Fen asked if children could play with fire. Daniel shook his head and said, "No, children are taught to stay away from fire. Only adults are allowed to start fires for cooking or celebration. We have rules and always watch carefully." Myra wanted to know more about the science of fire. Maria explained that fire was a kind of fast change. She used simple words to describe how oxygen mixed with other things to make flames. She drew a small picture on a screen showing how wood, air, and heat could make a fire. The scientists listened closely and asked questions. Some aliens were still worried. One older scientist said that on his planet even a small fire could destroy a city. Daniel listened to his fears and said, "We have had bad fires too, long ago. That is why we learned how to fight fires and make our cities safer. We learn from our mistakes." Maria explained that in history, humans lost whole towns to fire. But after every disaster, people worked together to build better and safer homes. She talked about firefighters, special machines, and water hoses. The aliens seemed interested in the idea that humans learned and improved after mistakes. Rowland thanked Daniel and Maria for being honest. He said, "You are not just brave, you are careful and smart. Maybe we can learn from you." Daniel smiled, feeling happy that they were making progress. He asked the scientists if they ever used heat or light for energy. Some of them nodded and explained their own ways of making power. Daniel listened and asked questions. Soon, everyone was talking and sharing ideas. After the meeting, Rowland invited Daniel and Maria to join him for a meal. The alien food was very different from Earth. But Maria tried everything and took notes. Daniel talked with Fen and Myra about sports and music on Earth. They laughed together as they learned new words in each other's languages. Later, Daniel and Maria walked outside with Rowland. The city was full of life. Children played in the parks and merchants sold colorful things at the market. Daniel saw that many aliens were not afraid of him anymore. Some waved and smiled. Maria stopped to look at a fountain that changed shape with every sound. Rowland said quietly, "Many of us were afraid before you came. We heard only stories about the danger of oxygen and fire. Now we see that you are not monsters. You are people, just like us." Daniel thanked Rowland and said he hoped more aliens would feel the same. Maria agreed and said, "We are all different, but we all want to be safe and happy." That evening, the council called Daniel and Maria back to the great hall. Zareth was waiting, along with the other leaders. He asked if the scientists had learned anything new. Rowland stood up and said, "Yes, we learned a lot. Humans are careful. They know how to use fire in safe ways." They can teach us many things. Zareth looked at Daniel and Maria. His eyes were softer now, not as cold as before. He thanked them for sharing their stories and said, "You have given us much to think about. Maybe we were wrong to be so afraid." Daniel spoke with hope in his voice. He said, "Fear can help us stay safe, but it can also keep us apart. We want to be friends. We want to learn and share with the galaxy." Maria added, "We do not want to bring danger. We want to bring knowledge and friendship." The council listened quietly. Some members still looked unsure, but others nodded in agreement. Zareth closed the meeting for the night, saying that the council would talk more in the morning. Daniel and Maria returned to their room. Daniel looked out the window at the city lights. He wondered if tomorrow would bring a new beginning for humans and the rest of the galaxy. Maria sat at the desk and wrote in her notebook. She believed that step by step they were breaking down the walls of fear with honesty and understanding. She smiled, ready for whatever came next. In the morning, the city was full of new energy. The news about Daniel and Maria's visit had spread across the planet. Many aliens talked about the humans who lived with oxygen and fire every day. Some were still worried, but others were starting to become curious instead of afraid. Daniel and Maria felt the change as soon as they left their room. More aliens greeted them in the halls, and a few even smiled. The council had called for another meeting. This time, the hall was even more crowded. Not only were the main council members there, but also students, reporters, and other curious people from many different worlds. Daniel noticed that even the guards seemed less tense. Zareth, the leader, welcomed everyone and asked Daniel and Maria to stand at the center. Zareth said that the council wanted to see proof that humans could control fire and use it safely. He asked if Daniel and Maria could show everyone how fire was used for good, not just for danger. Daniel and Maria had expected this request. The night before, Maria had prepared a special presentation using videos and pictures from Earth. Daniel spoke first. He explained that fire was one of the oldest tools of humanity. He said that long ago, humans had learned to use fire to cook food, keep warm, and protect themselves from wild animals. Without fire, humans might not have survived the cold or been able to eat safe food. The aliens listened quietly. Some of them wrote notes or recorded Daniel's words. Maria played a video from Earth. It showed a family making a campfire in a forest. The father carefully built the fire in a safe ring of stones. The mother helped the children roast marshmallows on sticks. Everyone laughed and told stories while the flames danced in the night. Afterward, the family poured water on the fire until it was completely out. Maria paused the video and pointed out all the safety steps the family followed. Next, Maria showed a video from a city. It was a celebration with fireworks. Bright colors exploded in the sky while people clapped and cheered. Police and fire trucks waited nearby to make sure everything was safe. Daniel explained that there were rules and trained people who watched over every celebration. Some aliens in the hall whispered to each other. They had never seen such large gatherings around fire without panic or fear. Daniel said, "Fire is a part of our lives, but we respect it. We teach our children to be careful. We have schools, books, and even games that help them learn safety." Maria added, "We do not let children play with fire. Only adults are allowed to start it for cooking or celebration, and we always watch closely." After the videos, Zareth turned to the other council members. He asked if anyone had questions for Daniel or Maria. Saran, the blue alien, asked how humans reacted if a fire started by accident. Maria explained about smoke alarms in houses and the way people practiced fire drills. Daniel said that in every city there were firefighters ready to help day or night. Velar, the green-skinned alien, asked if all humans followed the rules. Daniel was honest. He said, "Not everyone is perfect. Sometimes accidents happen because someone is careless, but most people follow the rules because they know fire can be dangerous." Maria explained that after every accident, people learned new lessons and made new rules to keep everyone safer, A young student from the audience asked how humans learned to control fire in the first place. Maria smiled and told the story of early humans using sparks from stones or lightning to start fires. She said it took many generations for people to understand how to use fire safely. Daniel added, "It was not easy, but it made us stronger and brought us together." The council members seemed impressed. Lyra, the water-world alien, said she had always thought fire was only for destruction. Now she saw that it could also mean warmth, food, and friendship. Soren said he liked the way humans celebrated together. Even Wheeler looked thoughtful, not so afraid as before. Zareth thanked Daniel and Maria for their honesty and for showing real examples from Earth. He told the crowd that fear was natural, but learning the truth could change everything. He asked everyone in the hall to think about what they had seen and heard. After the meeting, Daniel and Maria were invited to a special lunch with council leaders and scientists. The food was different, but everyone was in good spirits. They shared stories about their own worlds, and some aliens even asked for recipes from Earth. Maria promised to send them after she returned home. Later that day, Daniel and Maria joined a group of students at a science school. The students asked many questions about Earth, fire, and even about the stars. Daniel explained how humans had sent machines to explore other planets, and Maria talked about the importance of curiosity. She said, "We always want to know more. That is why we came here." A student named Tella asked if humans ever felt lonely in space. Daniel said that sometimes space was very big and empty, but humans found comfort in working together. He told the story of astronauts helping each other on long journeys. Maria said that humans always tried to find new friends, even among the stars. When the school visit ended, the students thanked Daniel and Maria. Some gave them small gifts from their world, like shiny stones or drawings of their homes. Daniel felt happy and proud. He knew they were making a difference. In the evening, Zareth called Daniel and Maria to his office. The room was quiet, with a large window showing the city lights. Zareth said that he was proud of what they had done. He said, "You have shown us that humans are more than just survivors. You are teachers, builders, and friends." Daniel thanked Zareth and said that he hoped humans and other species could work together in the future. Maria said she wanted to help other worlds learn about safety and science. Zareth promised to share what he had learned with the whole council. As Daniel and Maria walked back to their room, they talked about everything that had happened. Daniel said, "I think we have changed some minds today." Maria smiled and said, "Yes, but there is still more to do." They looked up at the stars above the city, feeling hope for the future. They knew that tomorrow would bring more questions, more talks, and maybe even more friendships. They were ready for whatever came next. The next morning, Daniel woke up before sunrise. He could not sleep because his mind was full of new thoughts. Maria was already sitting by the window, looking at the quiet city. She smiled when Daniel sat beside her. They both felt that something important was going to happen that day. When the sun rose, the city was filled with golden light. Daniel and Maria walked to the council building. The streets were busier than before. Aliens from many worlds were going about their day, but now, more of them waved or smiled at the humans. Some children even pointed and laughed in excitement when they saw Daniel and Maria. When they arrived at the council, the main hall was filled with more people than ever. Today, not just the council members, but also visitors from other planets had come to listen. There were reporters, students, and leaders from different groups. Zareth stood at the center, looking calm and serious. Zareth started the meeting by telling everyone how much the council had learned from Daniel and Maria. He said that fear of the unknown was natural, but learning could help everyone feel safe. He thanked the humans for being honest and brave. Then Zareth asked Daniel to share a special story. Daniel thought for a moment. He decided to tell the council about a time in Earth's history when fire had brought people together during hard times. He spoke about how, during cold winters, families would gather around a single fire to keep warm. Neighbors would help each other by sharing food and firewood. People sang songs and told stories, and even strangers became friends. As Daniel spoke, Maria showed pictures from Earth. There were families sitting close to a fireplace, people building bonfires on the beach, and whole towns coming together to celebrate with fireworks. She explained how fire, when respected, could give people hope and make them feel close, even in the darkest times. Saren, the blue alien, asked if there were any times when fire helped save lives. Maria explained how firefighters on Earth rescued people from burning buildings and how communities built safer houses after learning from accidents. She showed a short video of firefighters running into danger to help others. The council watched in silence, amazed at the bravery and teamwork. Wheeler, who had once been the most afraid, now looked thoughtful. He said, "I see that humans do not just survive with fire and oxygen. They use them to make their lives better and to help each other." Other council members nodded in agreement. After the story, Zareth opened the floor for questions. Many aliens asked about life on Earth. Some wanted to know more about human celebrations. Others asked about science, space travel, and how humans learn from their mistakes. A leader from a distant planet named Kira asked Maria if humans could teach other species about safety. Maria said she would be happy to share everything she knew. Daniel said that humans wanted to learn from others as well. He explained that every world had something special to offer. As the meeting continued, Daniel and Maria felt more and more welcome. They answered questions, shared jokes, and listened to stories from other worlds. For the first time, the Great Hall was filled with laughter and hope instead of fear. During the break, Zareth invited Daniel and Maria to a private meeting with a few council leaders. He told them that the council was planning to vote on a very important question. They would decide if Earth could become a true friend and partner to the other worlds. Zareth said, "We have learned much from you, but the final choice is not just mine. The council must agree together." Daniel and Maria waited while the council leaders spoke in quiet voices. They watched as Zareth and the others listened to each opinion and asked for advice from the scientists who had met Daniel and Maria. There was a feeling of hope in the room, but also a little bit of worry. After what felt like a long time, Zareth called Daniel and Maria back to the center of the hall. The council was ready to vote. Zareth explained that every member would choose if Earth should join as a friend and teacher, or if the council should wait and watch longer. Each council member pressed a button on their table to cast their vote. The hall was silent except for the gentle sound of the voting machines. When the last vote was cast, a large screen showed the results. Daniel and Maria held their breath as they saw the answer. Most of the council had voted yes. There were still a few who were unsure, but almost everyone now believed that humans could be good friends and teachers. Zareth stood up and smiled. He said, "From this day forward, Earth will be a welcome member of our council. We will learn from each other and share what we know." The whole hall burst into cheers. Aliens clapped and waved, and some even shouted words of welcome in their own languages. Reporters rushed to the front to take pictures of Daniel and Maria. Children from different planets waved small flags and gave gifts to the humans. Maria felt tears in her eyes, and Daniel grinned from ear to ear. After the meeting, there was a big celebration in the city. Food from many worlds was served in the open squares, and musicians played songs from different planets. Daniel tried a sweet fruit from Lyra's water world, while Maria learned a dance from Saren's home. People told stories and shared dreams. For the future, late that night, Zareth found Daniel and Maria sitting quietly on a balcony. He thanked them again and said, "You have changed our world and maybe the whole galaxy. You taught us that something we feared could become a gift, with respect and understanding." Daniel thanked Zareth for listening and for giving humans a chance. Maria said she was excited to start new projects and teach other worlds about science and safety. Zareth promised that the council would help them share their knowledge everywhere. As the city lights twinkled below, Daniel and Maria talked about all that had happened. Daniel said, "I never thought a simple truth could change so much." Maria replied, "Sometimes the things that scare us the most are the things that can bring us together." They sat quietly, feeling grateful and proud. The stars above looked brighter than ever. Daniel and Maria knew that their work was just beginning. With new friends and new hope, they were ready to help build a better future for everyone in the galaxy. The days after the council's decision were filled with excitement and new beginnings. Daniel and Maria became guests of honor across the city. They visited schools, science centers, and even family homes. Everywhere they went, aliens greeted them warmly. The fear that had once filled the streets was now replaced with curiosity and hope. In one school, Daniel talked to a group of children from many different planets. He showed them how humans learned about fire and safety. The children asked questions about Earth, and some wanted to know how to make a campfire or see fireworks. Maria explained that every place was different and that the most important thing was to learn and be careful. The teachers at the school thanked Daniel and Maria for bringing new ideas. One afternoon, the council held a special event in the city's largest square. People from across the planet gathered to celebrate the new friendship between Earth and the galaxy. There were music and dances from many worlds. Daniel and Maria walked through the crowd, shaking hands and sharing smiles. Some aliens even tried foods from Earth, while Maria tasted a sweet drink from Lyra's home planet. Everyone wanted to learn from each other. During the event, Zareth gave a speech. He told the story of how the council once feared oxygen and fire. He explained that it was the humans who taught everyone to look at old fears in a new way. He said, "We must remember that something we do not understand can become a friend if we learn and work together." The crowd cheered, and Daniel felt proud after the celebration. Daniel and Maria were invited to meet scientists from other worlds. Together, they planned new programs for safety and science. Maria shared lessons about fire, oxygen, and how to teach children to be careful. Some aliens were surprised by how simple and useful the lessons were. Daniel talked about how humans always tried to improve and help others after making mistakes. The scientists wrote down every word, excited to share the knowledge with their own people. Soon, news about Earth's ideas spread across the galaxy. On distant planets, teachers used Maria's lessons to show children how to be safe. Some worlds started new traditions, like small campfires with music and stories. Others held meetings where people shared things that once scared them, turning fear into learning and trust. Daniel and Maria also learned many new things. They saw how other species made energy and used light without fire. They listened to stories about old disasters and how different worlds became safer. Maria took notes and planned to bring these new ideas back to Earth. Daniel promised to share stories of the galaxy with children everywhere. Time passed, and Daniel and Maria prepared to return to Earth. The council organized one last gathering. Before their journey home, in the Great Hall, Zareth thanked them again. He said, "You helped us open our eyes and our hearts. Because of you, the galaxy is a safer and kinder place." Velar, who had once feared humans the most, stepped forward. He gave Daniel a small glass statue shaped like a flame. Velar said, "This is to remind you that what we fear today can be a light for the future." Daniel accepted the gift and promised to keep it on his desk at home. Maria received a book of stories from Lyra's planet. Lyra smiled and said, "Now, you can read about our world and remember that friendship is stronger than fear." Maria hugged the book and thanked her. On the day of their departure, the city streets were lined with people waving goodbye. The council's scientists and leaders walked with Daniel and Maria to their ship. Rallan, Fen, and Myra were there too. They all wished Daniel and Maria a safe journey and asked them to come back soon. As the ship lifted off, Daniel looked out the window. He saw the city, the rivers, and the strange forests below. He waved until the city became small and the stars filled the sky. Maria sat beside him, holding her new book and smiling. During the long trip home, Daniel and Maria talked about everything they had learned. Daniel said, "I think the galaxy will remember us as the people who burned oxygen for fun." Maria laughed and replied, "And maybe as the people who turned fear into friendship." When they finally landed on Earth, they were welcomed as heroes. People gathered to hear their stories and see the gifts from other worlds. Maria gave her first talk to a group of children at a school. She showed them the glass flame and the book of stories. She told them how important it was to learn, to listen, and to never let fear stop them from making friends. Daniel spoke to world leaders and shared the lessons of the council. He explained that, just like on other worlds, there would always be things to fear, But with honesty, respect, and learning, those fears could become something good. Earth decided to send more teachers and students to visit other planets, and new friendships grew every year. Over time, the story of Daniel and Maria's trip to the council became famous. People all over the galaxy remembered the words, "We burn it for fun." It became a symbol of courage, learning, and the power to change. Even years later, Daniel kept Wheeler's glass flame on his desk. Maria read from Lyra's book and shared the stories with her students. Sometimes they would meet with their old friends from other worlds, sharing news and laughter across the stars. The galaxy was never the same. Now, when someone felt afraid of something new, they remembered the humans who taught everyone that fear can lead to friendship, and that even the most dangerous things can bring hope if people face them together. The end.